You've probably heard the old saying, money is the root of all evil. And while that's debatable, there's another phrase that hits closer to home: debt is slavery. And honestly, there's some truth to that. When you're buried under debt, it feels like your whole life is on hold. You're grinding away trying to pay it off, but the debt isn't sitting still waiting for you. It's growing, every single day. Because nobody lends money out of the kindness of their heart, there's always interest attached to it. And yet, despite knowing all of this, people keep borrowing. In the United States alone, total consumer debt sits at nearly $15 trillion. Let that sink in. The entire U.S. economy is worth just over $21 trillion, and consumers owe $15 trillion of that in debt. The average household carries over $5,300 in debt. That's a massive number. But here's where I'm going to say something that might make you uncomfortable. Debt isn't always the enemy. That's the unpopular opinion. Most of the debt regular people carry is bad debt. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, the kind that drains your wallet every month with nothing to show for it. And so naturally, most people assume all debt is terrible. But what if I told you that the wealthiest people in the world use debt as a weapon? Not to survive, but to get even richer. Sounds strange, right? Why would someone who already has money need to borrow more? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. 5 ways rich people use debt to multiply their wealth. Stay with me because by the end of this, your entire perspective on debt is going to shift. Number 1, using debt to fund trade without spending your own money. Here's something most people don't know about how global trade actually works. Let's say a guy wants to start a business selling pens. Simple product, steady demand, nothing fancy. The smart move is to find a factory overseas, source the pens at a low cost, ship them in, and sell them at a higher price. Straightforward enough. But here's the thing. He doesn't actually need to pay for those pens up front. Over the past several decades, overseas manufacturers, particularly in Asia, have become so competitive that many of them are willing to ship you their products first and collect payment later. Essentially, they're lending you the inventory. Of course, you need to build a relationship and establish some trust before they'll do that. But once that trust is there, the model becomes incredibly powerful. You sell the products, collect the money from your customers, pay the factory, and order the next batch. Your own capital stays untouched. You're basically telling the factory, you know how to make it, I know how to sell it. Let's split the value. That's leverage. That's using someone else's resources to generate your own profit. And it's why selling remains one of the most valuable skills anyone can develop in business. Number 2, real estate refinancing. This is where debt gets seriously interesting. Real estate is arguably the single greatest wealth-building vehicle ever created. And not just because property values go up. It's because the entire system is loaded with advantages for people who know how to use debt correctly. Here's a scenario. Let's say a guy has saved up $200,000. That's not a small amount, but in the real estate world, that alone won't get you very far. However, with that $200,000, he can use it as a down payment and secure a mortgage on a property worth up to $1 million, depending on the terms. Now, instead of buying a shiny new property, he finds a rundown one. Let's say it's listed at $500,000 because it's in rough shape and nobody wants to touch it. He puts down 20%, which is $100,000, gets the mortgage, and then spends another $50,000 renovating it. Now the property looks completely different. And more importantly, it's worth something different. The market value climbs from $500,000 to, say, $700,000. Here's where the magic happens. He goes back to the bank and refinances the mortgage. Now the bank is working off the new value of the property. 80% of $700,000 is $560,000. He uses $400,000 of that to pay off the original mortgage, another $50,000 covers renovation costs, and he's left with $110,000 in his pocket. Essentially, pulled out of the property. And he still owns the property. He can rent it out, build equity, generate monthly income, all while having recovered more than his initial investment. On top of that, because he carries a mortgage, he qualifies for tax deductions that most people without property will never see. Every dollar saved in taxes is a dollar earned. This is why wealthy real estate investors almost always have multiple mortgages running at the same time. Not because they're broke, but because it's smart. Number 3. How hedge funds short the market using borrowed assets. This one's a little more complex, but stay with me. Most of us invest in a pretty simple way. We try to figure out which companies are growing, put our money in, and hope the stock price goes up. Straightforward. But hedge funds, investment vehicles built by and for very wealthy clients, often do the complete opposite. They make money when companies fall. Here's how it works. Let's say a guy has strong reason to believe a particular tech company's stock is about to drop. Maybe a major announcement is coming that will hurt their business model. He calls his broker and borrows one share of that company's stock, currently priced at $100. He immediately sells it in the open market for that $100. Now he has the cash, but he still owes his broker one share. Sure enough, the stock drops to $70. He buys one share back at $70, returns it to his broker, and keeps the $30 difference as profit. That's called short selling, and it's done entirely on borrowed assets. Now, the risk here is enormous. If he's wrong and the stock goes up instead of down, he still has to return that share, at whatever the new price is. There's no ceiling on how much he can lose, because theoretically, a stock can keep rising forever. That's why regular people shouldn't touch this without serious expertise. But with a team of experienced analysts, it becomes a calculated strategy that can generate enormous returns even in a crashing market. Number 4. Leverage in currency trading. Currency markets, also known as Forex, are where the world's currencies are bought and sold. This market exists because international trade requires it. If a business is operating in one country but paying workers or suppliers in another, they need to exchange currencies. And because these currencies fluctuate in value based on economic conditions, interest rate decisions, political events, and dozens of other factors, there's real money to be made predicting those movements. But here's what makes Forex unlike almost any other market. The leverage available is extraordinary. For every dollar you bring to the table, you can potentially control a position worth 100 times more. So if someone walks in with $1,000 and uses full leverage, he's effectively trading with $100,000. A 1% movement in the right direction doesn't give him $10. It gives him $1,000. Of course, leverage works both ways. A 1% move in the wrong direction wipes out that same $1,000 instantly, which is why discipline, strategy, and risk management are everything in this space. But for those who master it, currency markets offer a level of capital efficiency that almost nothing else can match. Number 5. Building your credit score to access cheaper debt. Here's the final piece, and honestly, it's the foundation everything else sits on. All the strategies we've discussed, trading inventory on credit, refinancing properties, borrowing shares, leveraging currency positions, none of it is accessible to someone with a poor credit history. Because at the end of the day, borrowing cheap money requires proving that you're worth lending to. Banks are sitting on enormous reserves. There are billions, possibly trillions, of dollars waiting to be lent out to the right borrowers. And the lower the risk you represent to the lender, the lower the interest rate you'll qualify for. That difference in interest rate might seem small on paper, but on large amounts over long periods of time, it translates into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Building a strong credit profile is essentially building your reputation as a borrower. Make your payments on time. Keep your balances low. Don't apply for new credit unnecessarily. Over time, that track record becomes a financial asset in itself, because it unlocks access to the kind of low-cost capital that the wealthy use to keep building wealth. So the next time someone tells you that all debt is bad, remember this: it depends entirely on how you use it. High-interest consumer debt with nothing to show for it? Yes, that's a trap. But strategic low-interest debt used to acquire assets that grow in value or generate income, that's not a burden. That's a tool. And the sooner you learn to tell the difference, the sooner you start thinking less like a consumer and more like an investor.